Oh, there we go.
There we
There
go.
we go. Okay, I'll kick it off then. So, welcome everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you're joining from. My name is Julie Wilkes, and I've got the honour of introducing Rachel today in this presentation that she's got the masterclass for autism and ADHD. So, quick bio about Rachel. She's a mum of three from North Canterbury in New Zealand who started digging deep into research after searching for answers for her son with autism and ADHD. Through years of learning about inflammation, oxidative stress, gut health, and natural approaches, she became passionate about helping other families understand the foundations that are often overlooked. She now shares what she's learned to help other parents feel less overwhelmed and more empowered on their journey. And I've heard Rachel's story before, and it's absolutely amazing. So I'm honored to be able to introduce her, and I will mute myself and let you kick it off, Rach.
Thanks so much, guys, and thanks for jumping on. I'm just going to share my screen and we will get started. Actually, hang on. I need to go back to the beginning. Hang on a second. Mm, Right. Can everyone see that?
Yep, that's perfect.
It's showing up. Okie dokie. Right. So today I'm going to share what I've learned over the last 5 years of supporting my son. Some of the things that we will be covering today is what's really going on underneath the surface, the missing piece most people overlook, why oxidative stress and glutathione matter, the gut-brain connection and what to look for, key nutrients that affect mood, focus, and sleep, and where to start without overwhelm, and support for you as a parent too. So I want you to leave here today feeling clear and not overwhelmed and having an idea of where to start. So as you know, it will be recorded, and actually I will send out, I have an ebook that I've done. It's basically what I wish I knew, a mum's guide to navigating autism and ADHD naturally. So I'll send that out to you guys as well. Right. So there's lots of information to get through. So some of it I will be brief and then it goes in deeper with the e-book. Right, my story. 5 years ago, our son Freddie was diagnosed with autism and ADHD. He struggled with meltdowns, poor eye contact, chewed his clothes, sensory overwhelm, struggled to sit on the mat at school, struggled with social interactions. I had already done a lot with gut health. I used to research every night trying to understand how to help him. At the time, I had a 6-month-old baby and a 2-year-old. My husband was away a lot. He's a truck driver. I knew something was not right, but I didn't know what. The teacher actually mentioned to me that it might be something medical, and we went to the GP to get a diagnosis, which took time. I started researching about ADHD because I thought perhaps what it might have been. I felt very overwhelmed. I joined groups. I joined all the Facebook groups. I remember one night spending the evening reading them and crying and feeling hopeless. Nothing in there gave me hope. All I heard was terrible stories. Okay, it was awful. So I've been on a really big journey about autism or ADHD, and I'm just wanting to share everything that I've learned. As a disclaimer, please know I am not a medical professional. This is not medical advice. I'm a mum sharing my personal experience. What I share is what has helped my son. Every child is different, results will vary, and this is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, heal, or mitigate autism or ADHD. So we're going to go to the root cause, and no one has ever really spoken to me about this. No pediatricians, no one in New Zealand. So we're going to the cellular level of what is happening in their bodies with autism and ADHD. The autism diagnosis is a label, but it doesn't really tell you what's going on underneath the surface. We have chronic inflammation or oxidative stress, is a scientific word for it, mitochondrial dysfunction, the gut-brain connection, detox pathways that are stuck, and a nervous system in survival mode. The word I'm going to use today a lot is oxidative stress. And many of you may not have heard of the word oxidative stress. It's a scientific word basically for inflammation. So I'll probably use the two between it. I had never heard of oxidative stress. And basically, when you have an apple and you cut it and it starts browning, it's oxidizing. So that's what's happening in our bodies. Our bodies are oxidizing, browning, and it's happening in our cells. Children with autism and ADHD have very high levels of oxidative stress. This is a fact, you can Google it. This will show up as meltdowns and big emotions, poor focus, sleep issues, sensory overload, anxiety or hyperactivity, gut issues, and frequent illness. And if you read the slide down there, oxidative stress can cause all of these things too. I'm not going to read them all, but you can see that here. So I've seen many OAT tests and they all show high levels of oxidative stress. Yet none of them, when I ask what the practitioners have recommended, seem to address it. It seems to be the missing piece. So I have a TikTok page and I share a lot of this information on there, and a lot of people send me the OAT test for their children, and I always ask the question and nothing is seeming to address it. So what I'm going to share with you is about the missing piece, which is glutathione. Right, I'll just give you a basic overview. Every human has a natural way to deal with oxidative stress, and it's called glutathione. Glutathione is a master antioxidant. It's actually made in the body, and it removes heavy metals, toxins, and waste, and it reduces oxidative stress. Kids with autism and ADHD have low levels of glutathione, but you can't just give them the glutathione supplements because they don't really make it through the stomach. You need to get the body to make it. Now, some try and use NAC, but that's a building block, and you're giving it in the hope that the body makes it, but it doesn't quite work as well. So what we use, well, the solution is the NRF2 pathway. So we use Protandim NRF2. So there's other things that will trigger this pathway, okay? But the way to reduce oxidative stress in the body and increase glutathione is switching on the NRF2 pathway. Once that pathway is turned on in the body starts making glutathione. So the other NRF2 activators, because I know I sometimes have people from other countries that can't get Protandim, is sulforaphane is one, selenium is one, but we use this formulation here, which has got 5 herbs in it: turmeric, green tea, bacopa, milk thistle, and ashwagandha, because what it does, it switches on that pathway, and it's a lot more powerful than, say, using sulforaphane, which you can see the difference here. Okay, when we started using this for my son, what changed for us is we saw he was calmer, we had fewer meltdowns, his focus improved, his eye contact improved, eventually he stopped chewing his clothes, the sensory overwhelm seemed to settle down too, in the meltdowns. So basically how he describes it is, Mum, it feels like I have a fire, my brain is on fire. Okay, so when he takes this, it feels like the fire is gone. So he has been on this now for 5 years, and I think a couple of years into it, he had a growth spurt, and I wasn't actually giving him enough. I was giving him a half a tablet, and he came home, he had 3 days at school, and his teacher came out to see me, and she said, oh, he's just so dysregulated. And he came home in tears, and he was like, Mum, I can't sit on the mat, I can't do anything. I hate being autistic. And he said, my brain feels like it's on fire. So that's when I was like, oh, popped him on the scales, realized I wasn't giving him enough, put him up to the full tablet, day off the next day, and then a few days later, he was back to his self. So it is very powerful. Okay. Now, once I understood about oxidative stress and started supporting that, things began to shift. But there's another big piece that comes up as well, and that is the gut. The gut and the brain is directly connected. They're constantly communicating with each other. So when the gut is off, you'll often see it show up in behavior, mood, and focus. In kids with autism and ADHD, poor gut health is incredibly common. Things like fussy eating, sugar cravings, bloating, constipation, mood swings, poor sleep, skin rashes, anxiety, and focus. All of these are clues that the gut isn't working properly. And you can see here, like if they have the leaky gut, um, the toxins can get through. The junctions are not tight anymore, okay, and they get into the bloodstream. Because when the gut's not working well, the brain can't work properly either. And because the body is not absorbing nutrients properly, it's not producing brain chemicals the body needs. Now, like as I've said, you see what can happen when it's a leaky gut. The toxins are going through, the nutrients aren't getting absorbed, the brain is not getting the right food to create neurotransmitters, and toxins are leading into the body and creating more inflammation and oxidative stress. And it's a really vicious cycle. So, what helped us heal the gut? So I actually did this when Freddie was about 4. I worked with a kinesiologist to do this. He had eczema and nothing really helped. So what the kinesiologist did, she identified the trigger foods for dairy. So for Freddie, sorry, for him it was dairy. For my other 2 children, it was different. My son Walter, so my other 2 are neurotypical. They're not autistic or ADHD, but they had eczema. So my Walter, my middle child, his was soy, corn, and lactose, and my daughter was gluten. So you can't guess that stuff. Like that's why going to the kinesiologist and getting the trigger foods is really important. So we removed those. We supported the gut lining. We added probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics. Back then, I know more than I do now. I know more now than I did then, so I would have done it slightly differently. We put some fish oil in, but we didn't have the NRF2 back then, and that's actually the key, is reducing the inflammation. So once you reduce the inflammation in the brain and in the gut, it helps the gut lining repair so the nutrients can be absorbed again. It's a really huge piece of the puzzle. So sometimes I see lots of practitioner advice, and some of them are really full on, like gluten and dairy free, the GAPS diet. So that's why I think if you actually know what you need to take out, that's far more practical than trying to take everything out. Um, Now, what happens when the gut is not working properly? What is common in autism and ADHD children is nutritional deficiencies. Some of the ones that I see are missing are magnesium, fish oil, zinc, B vitamins, iron, and selenium. You can be feeding them the best food and the best supplements, but if the gut is inflamed, then they won't be absorbing them. So you must heal the gut first. I go into this more in this ebook, like I talk more specific about what happens with the zinc and how to get the magnesium into them. So I won't go too much into it because we do have a lot of information to get through. Neurotransmitters. So most of the key transmitters are made in the gut. Dopamine for focus and motivation, serotonin for mood and calmness, GABA for relaxation, melatonin for sleep. These things that you got to watch, there's zinc and copper balance, and quercetin will help zinc get into the cells. But we started using a nootropic designed to support brain function. So it wasn't originally in New Zealand, but it came out about 18 months later. So we had Freddie on the NRF2, and then but 18 months later we got the Axio, and I will show you what that looks like. It's like in a container, but I'll explain a bit more. What is an Axio? Axio is a natural nootropic drink. It's literally food for the brain. The ingredients in there are like L-theanine, magnesium, methylated B vitamins. Depending on what country you're in, pine bark extract or asparagus extract, and quercetin, depending on the market. It actually tastes really good too. So we have Facebook groups. So the person that invited you here can put you into one. But this was my son Freddie 2 weeks after we added in the Axio. See his handwriting here. Then 2 weeks later here. I actually got an email from his teacher. So it was funny. I saw her after school and I said, "Oh, I meant to email you because I've been giving Freddie something different. And she was like, well, I was going to email you because I was wondering what was going on with him. So you can read this here that his emotional, his eye contact got better, communicating his feelings, and the handwriting as well, because she was really impressed with that. There's more testimonials. Now, this is only another one, but literally in these Facebook groups, there's tons of these things. This is Xavier. He has ADHD with NRF2 and Axio. She, Letitia is my friend. This is her son. He was not sitting where he needed to be. He was very reactive, doing cartwheels in class. The older sister was on Ritalin when she was 7, but the side effects were damaging. So she started him on the Axio and NRF2. Less meltdowns, a lot calmer, more relaxed. The teacher said, whatever you're doing at home, keep it up. He's having outstanding days. And the thing is that we notice, like Freddie notices and Xavier did, they keep asking to take it because they know it makes them feel better. Now, there's another layer that comes up for some kids, and that's mitochondria. Mitochondria are basically the energy part of the cell. They turn food into energy in the brain that the brain and body can use. When there's lots of stress on the body, like oxidative stress, these can become less efficient. And when that happens, you see things like low energy, poor focus, slower progress, or a child that seems easily overwhelmed. This is something that shows up in the OAT tests where you can see markers for it. So we have support for this too, which is an NRF1 activator. So for Freddie, this is not something we've needed to focus on. We muscle tested him for this and he doesn't need it. But for some kids, it can be another piece of the puzzle. So again, I would not start here. I always come back to the foundation, which is the NRF2, then layer things in if need be. So there are gene mutations. I don't know if anyone's heard of the MTHFR gene mutation. So this presents a lot in autistic and ADHD children. It affects detox, impacts nutrient use, affects brain chemicals, and can slow detox pathways. So to know if you have the MTHFR, you need a genetic test. There's a lot of other OAT tests, for example, for gut, yeast, mitochondria, FRAT tests, hair tests for heavy metals, gut and parasite stool tests. So these are not actually very common in New Zealand, but I have seen a lot of people from overseas send them to me. So it's a lot more common over there. They can be very expensive in New Zealand. And I just want you to understand, you don't need to get those tests before you start to help your child's body. Okay. Because I've seen some amazing OAT tests, and then I ask them what they get given, and they get a huge list of supplements, but very little addresses the oxidative stress, which is a foundation. And some of them are tons of supplements. And I'm like, do these people have autistic children? Like, do they know how hard it is to get different things into them? And some of them get all the tests done, and then they get no other information. And I'm going to say this, but I'm not saying it because I'm really clever or anything like that. But just from what I've seen, I look at them all the time. And before I look at these tests, based on what the parents are telling me about the symptoms, I can almost guess what's in there. I know it sounds like, oh, but I really can. There's always the oxidative stress. There's always the gut dysbiosis. There's always the nutritional deficiencies. Now, detoxing in autism, ADHD. Your body needs to clear toxins. Our bodies these days are very overloaded due to the environment we live in. We have more chemicals in our water, in our food, EMS, Wi-Fi. Our gut health is not as good as our grandparents. Our bodies are overloaded. So detox can be slow, especially if your child is not going to the toilet regularly. It's really important to work on detox, but gently and not harsh. So I do see a lot, people ask me about the zeolite sprays. They bind toxins, but you've got to be really careful that the detox pathways are open, because if they're not, they're like releasing the heavy metals into the body and they're not flushing them out, and they cause more issues. Whereas the NRF2, after 4 months, the glutathione levels will triple, and glutathione sticks to the heavy metals and toxins and pulls them out far gently, and it works with the body. So it's just a different way, a different system of how it works. And I honestly think just doing it more gently with autistic ADHD kids is the way to go. Mold and heavy metals. As I was saying before, sadly, our bodies and our children's are under a high toxic load. Heavy metals such as lead, mercury, aluminium add stress to the body and it impacts detox pathways. Exposure can come from many things: vaccines, lead in houses, toys, clawfoot baths, lead sinkers, and what we use to cook in. In New Zealand, our rules around lead is very pitiful. There is lead in clawfoot baths, there's lead in the sinkers if your children are going fishing, there's a lead in a lot of things. And it actually like the heavy metals cause issues. Mold also causes many issues and it's common but often mixed. So the things like the heavy metals and the mold, they actually shut down the NRF2 pathway. So the body is not detoxing. And the mold can be in things like heat pumps in houses. They're not cleaned out properly. So it's so important to make sure detox pathways are working, again, why the NRF2 activation is the foundation. Parasites. Now, do any of you ever notice changes with the full mood with your child? Itchy bottoms, teeth grinding, just really off the rocker a little bit? Or you're seeing sugar cravings, bloating, mood changes. So parasites tend to thrive in an imbalanced gut, not a healthy one. Again, it's about getting that gut healthy and balanced. So be careful with harsh protocols, like don't try and kill off yeast, things like that, because you have die off and it causes other issues. Again, we're reducing inflammation, getting the gut balanced, that can help with that sort of thing. I do actually worm my children every year, just a standard dewormer from the chemist. I can show you what that looks like. One of the things I want to talk about that not many people ever mention: birth trauma. My Freddie had a really traumatic birth. Okay, he was pulled with the ventouse. It caused, basically, it's pulled his head out of balance, cause a lot of stress on the body and can affect the nervous system, impacts body regulation, and the body can hold tension. Now, the birth trauma doesn't have to be like Freddie's when he was pulled like that. It can be like a elective C-section. My daughter Molly had an elective C-section. She, while she doesn't have what Freddie has with the inflammation, she struggles if she can't find me. She likes to be next to me when she falls asleep, and it's just things that have happened to her when, during the birth and afterwards that can cause it. Birth interventions can cause a cascade of neurological issues such as colic, constipation, chronic ear infections, developmental delays, autism, ADHD, sensory processing, and anxiety. And don't forget, birth trauma is also what happened to the mum whilst pregnant, the baby can pick up on. So Freddie had this really traumatic birth. And then probably when he was 10 days old, I had him at a cranial sacral therapist. He still goes. He goes every 6 months. He went a couple of weeks ago. Before that, he was like wound up, really reactive. He was like sore. It gets really jammed up all around his cranial base. He goes to see Di, gets on the bed, and then she works on him, releases everything, and then he's just so relaxed. He's like a different child. Now, if you have other birth trauma, I have a friend, Sonia Cortis, and she is a birth trauma specialist. This is something that no one really talks about, and it's a real impact. And I truly believe that Freddie's birth contributed to his autism diagnosis. So things that we've done over the years is the cranial and the visceral manipulation. So visceral manipulation is going deeper, it's getting into the organs. So Freddie used to, when he was at preschool, he would fall all the time. He had terrible spatial awareness. He was sitting on children. And the visceral manipulation, he was basically out of balance, and she helped rebalance him. I've also done things like quantum energy healing, which I go into more depths with the ebook, because I'm just going to say with these children, autistic and ADHD children, I would describe them as high frequency children. Freddie has this super hearing. He can hear anything. His sense of smell is ridiculous. Like, so for things for him is really can be very overwhelming. Like smells can be overwhelming. Um, Hearing the noises can be overwhelming. So I guess what I'm trying to say there is the quantum energy can help them, because quite often I find with him, he holds on to stuff, like he won't let things go or he repeats it. And I found that sort of help release that. Tapping is another thing I've recently got into with Freddie, and that's helped him release things as well. As because he's 11 now, so we're going through different changes with puberty and with dealing with friends and just learning how to navigate that. So this is a huge part of what I do regularly with Freddie, and he feels the difference, and I see it as well. So I think this is super important for their bodies. Now, the product stacks that I recommend, NRF2 is always the foundation. Start simple and build slowly. So it's a yellow pill. It's a tablet. It's natural. What I do is I make a smoothie every day for Freddie, and I pop it in there. Now, he drinks that quite happily. But when we were in Canada, we were there last year for my niece's wedding, and I made the exact same smoothie up, and he wouldn't drink it, which was really hard. So I ended up grinding it up and putting it into chocolate. Us grinding it up and getting a store-bought smoothie and getting him to make that, drink that. Um, Depending if there's gut issues, the probiotic is really good as well. And the Axio. So depending on what country you're in, if you're in the US, your Axio looks like that. If you're in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, your Axio looks like that. And also there's some gut health stacks as well. So these weren't, obviously I didn't do these when Freddie was 4 because I didn't know about these products. This one here is in the US and UK. It's our new gut health microbiome product. This one actually covers, it has like 40 fruits and veggies, 10 probiotics, no, actually 15 probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics. Now, I must warn you, it's a powder, it mixes up really well, but it's green. I gave it to Freddie, so Mum, autistic children are not going to look at this and drink it. So you would have to put it in a cup that they can't see it and mix it with a juice, like an apple juice or an orange juice or smoothie, and a little bit at a time. But if you've got the picky eating and you wanting to get the nutrients into them, you wanting to cover all bases, prebiotics, postbiotics, digestive enzymes, this is a really good option. But obviously it's dependent on country or where you're at as well. Now, there's one thing that I don't really talk about enough, but I should. Autism is expensive. So if you are sitting here where I was 5 years ago, I see you and I was you. I understand what you're going through. This journey is very expensive. You've been under a lot of stress. You've been reading those Facebook groups. You've been trying to understand what's going on. You've been crying. You're worried about, is their life going to get better? Are they going to have a boyfriend or girlfriend? Are they going to have a job? You're worried. When my friend told me about this, she said to me, Rach, you should start taking this too. At the time I was breastfeeding, I had terrible brain fog. I had a 2-year-old as well. I hardly slept. I was living on sugar, caffeine. I was not a calm patient mum. And I started taking it too. And it helped me become a more patient and calm mum. It helped my body. I never realized that I needed it because I was always worried about Freddie. And actually, my husband had neck issues, but that's another story. So if you can start taking NRF2, it will help you as well. And there's another part that I don't really talk about, and I should do, is that there's actually an affiliate model to help you pay for your products. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to do what I'm doing. You don't need to know anything. All you need to do is share with other people that may need this information. Okay, I've had 5 years of delving into this, but when my friend said about it to me, I was like, oh, why not? Because we'd had some really good results with Freddie. And I was like, people need to know this. You know, people need to have hope, because that's the thing that I did not have reading those Facebook groups. I didn't have hope. And not one pediatrician, not one doctor, no one has told me about this stuff. This is just from me deep delving and learning. And I just want to share this information with you because I want to give you hope as well, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I'm just going to tell you a wee story about Freddie. So when he was 6, so 5 years ago, we started the diagnosis part, and you had to go to the pediatrician and say all the different things that, the incidents, I guess you would call them. And I had this amazing lady help me from the school, the learner support. She came along. One of the things Freddie had done was the cross country. And he was running the cross country and he was 6 and he was doing fine. And then he got to the crowds and the noise and he started screaming and going too loud and crying. And I was like, oh my goodness. And Freddie hasn't done a cross country since then. And the pediatrician said to me, don't send him, it's just too much. This week, Freddie ran the cross country, didn't want me there, which I was a bit gutted about. Took along his Discman and his music, but then he said, Mum, didn't really work because my bum bag, I had it in. So I just ran it, and he got 8th in the cross country. So that was huge for him. About 18 months ago, he went away on school camp. Just didn't want me to come along to be a parent helper. Did amazing. He has friends. It's taught himself the guitar. He is a really cool kid. He is, honestly, for me, it's just helped his body so much so he can be like the best kid ever. And I just want you to have hope too. Thank you. So yeah, we're going to do the question and answer now, and the recording will be emailed out, and that is me. So I will stop sharing.